Hello folks, it is me again, VB7200, and today we're doing something a little bit different than usual. I've never really made a video like this before, so it's kind of my first time experience, but today we're going to be delving into some haunted things, a local legend of mine that I know very well, that's from my hometown. If you guys have heard of it, please leave comments on your experiences and whatnot. But if you are into haunted cemeteries, murder cases, stuff like that, this is definitely a video for you. Now, I kind of just want to make something clear before we do start here. This is not like a down the rabbit hole type video on the murder that took place here. And funny enough, it's not even in the same location that Starr Hill Road, or Penn Mountain Forest is called, that it's on. It's actually on Potato Hill Road, which is very, very close to the area, but they didn't find the body here or anything like that. They actually found the body on the corners of Potato Hill Road and Lademan Road, which is close by to the state forest that's haunted and everything, but it's not in the same place. I'll be giving some detail on it just so there's some background and everything, but this is not that kind of video where we're gonna invest, all this time into cracking the case and whatnot. It's just sort of an information thing. So without further ado, let's find out a little bit more about Penn Mountain State Forest, or locally as everyone calls it, Starr Hill. So first off, Starr Hill is located in the New York State Penn Mountain State Forest. And as you can see up on the screen now, the road is where it gets its name from. It's called Starr Hill Road. It's a pretty long road. It comes off of Route 12. And basically the area in question that everyone says is haunted is basically Penn Mountain Forest. Now, closer down to the road, you can kind of see where Starr Hill Road is labeled there on the map. It splits. There's basically, the road continues on straight, or you can take a right turn and go up the road there into the forest, Penn Mountain State Forest. Back there, it's basically just all, it's state protected land. It's all forest. In the winter time there's snowmobiling trails. In the summer you can take quads and ATVs back there and whatnot. But closer to the road, there's basically two lookouts. There's one actually on Starr Hill Road, which overlooks the hill, as it is on a hill. It's actually pretty high up. You can see there's Lake Delta, you can see, which is in Rome. You can see a little bit of Rome and Utica, which are probably about half an hour away from this location. So it's pretty cool that you can see all that stuff, and it is popular for people to go up there just and hang out and do whatever that they're going to be doing up there. Just have a little time to look over and enjoy the scenes and whatever. But going further up into the actual forest, there's a network of trails. It's basically just one long trail that goes up and kind of stems off. It goes to other roads and other locations and stuff like that. But there's a lot of interesting stuff along the road that I'll get into later in the video. But this right now is just kind of an overlook of the area. Further down from where you see Starr Hill Road, up a little bit into those trees, there's a geodome, they call it. Basically what it is it's, I believe, something for air traffic control. I'm not 100% sure, but when you drive up to it, it's all fenced off with, the high, tall barbed wire fences, and there's a big white radar dome up there, basically, that has signs all over it from the Air Force and whatnot saying, if you tamper with it or if you go in there, it's a federal crime and whatnot. But also further up you can see too, there's a little pond which people go kayaking on and stuff in the summertime, which is nicknamed Hatch's Pond after the gentleman who is accused of doing all those murders up there and burying bodies and whatnot. And yeah, that's pretty much the location what you're working with. Also, as you go further up, there's a cemetery, which I might splice into later in the video, some footage that I've taken when I was there. But let's get on to the actual ghost stories now. Now, the first ghost story, and arguably the oldest one, and one of the most common ones that I've heard, is of the Baron von Steuben, or as it's properly pronounced, is actually Steuben, but everyone around here calls it Steuben, so I'll say that just to make it easier. Basically, the Baron von Steuben was in the Revolutionary War, if you remember reading about it in school. He was one of the generals that Washington brought over from, I believe, Prussia, and helped train the Continental troops in the Revolutionary War to help beat the British. Now, Steuben, the town Steuben is named after him, obviously. He lived around this area. Not sure if Steuben is actually exactly where he lived, but on the memorial there is a mock cabin of the house that he may have lived in, basically like a recreation of the original one. It's not his original house, but it's recreated to basically be like the original one. Now, the story that I've always heard is that basically when they built this memorial, um, I don't even know how many years ago. I believe when he originally died, they buried him in this location, dedicated the town to him and whatever. And that's where his body originally was. I would have to guess, hundreds of years ago when he died, he was alive, in Washington and all of them were alive, so it was some time ago. And when they built this whole memorial park and whatnot for him, they had him buried there. And then sometime later, some years later, they ended up moving his body. And they say that if you sit down at the lookout, the most popular story that you hear from everyone around here is the lights. The lights have many, basically, explanations for them that people explain they could be. A lot of people say headlights, it's a car or it's a house or something. But when you're going up that road in the area that you see them in, there's no roads over there. And the road is way lower than where you're sitting up on the lookout. So when cars do come by, you don't see them until they're right on top of you and you don't see any sort of lights. Myself, I have seen them. They're basically two lantern-looking objects, or sometimes one, that moves across the road very, very slowly. The lights are flickering on it. It looks like it's a fire or like a candle or something like that. It does not look like headlights. In my opinion, it doesn't. But anyway, one of the ghost stories, the explanation of what it is that it's the Baron von Steuben carrying a lantern looking for his body that people always say that is. There's a couple different explanations that I'll get into in a little bit, but that is one of the most popular ones and probably the oldest stories that I've heard. Now, the next story is of the witch doctor. Now, the witch doctor was a doctor that lived in the area in, again, colonial times, sometime either during or after the Revolutionary War. I'm not 100% sure. I believe after, because I believe his gravestone says 18 something, like 1802, something like that. Now, this is another explanation for the lights. Apparently there was a man, he was a doctor in the area. He was a doctor who practiced like holistic medicine or herbal treatments for diseases and whatnot like that. So people in the area believed him to be a witch doctor. They called him that. Back then, especially like Salem witch trials and all that kind of stuff. Anything that was like spiritual or against the norm was considered, witchcraft and stuff like that. But apparently he was well liked by everyone in the area. He wasn't like feared, but the kids would say, oh, he's a witch doctor, that type of thing. The story goes that he was riding down about where the lookout is, which is what the picture on the screen is. And he was riding his horse. Something spooked the horse or something, and he fell down the embankment and broke his leg, and something else happened to him, and he wasn't able to get himself help or help himself. The wife says this afterwards, that the horse came back without her husband on it, and she knew then that something was wrong, and he probably wasn't coming home. And somebody found him, a farmer found him, or farmers found him, and he ended up dying because of that. And the other story for the lights goes that the lanterns are carried by him, and he's in search of other patients for him to help. Now, he was a real person, and he is buried on Starr Hill Road. You can actually visit his gravestone, which is what I have up right here. Very hard to read, though, as it's old, acid rain erosion, all that kind of thing, so it is kind of hard to make out on the picture what it says. But you can go to the church where he was buried, and actually, because he wasn't a member of the church, they refused to have his funeral inside the church. Instead, they allowed him to have it outside. And people from all around came to it and whatnot, and that's another reason why some people say that he is carrying the lantern or he's still a ghost, is because he was never allowed to pass on to heaven or hell. He's in like a purgatory sort of thing. But you can actually visit his grave if you're ever in the area. It's pretty cool, actually. Now, the next story is a very sad one. It is of basically a man by the name of Bernard Hatch, or Bernie Hatch, as people that knew him in the area called him. He's basically a man in the, I believe, mid or late 70s that, now this is also a very big story around here that everyone knows, is basically what he did is he killed an older lady by the name of Mary Rose Turner. And basically he kidnapped her, he killed her, and he dragged her body behind his green, I believe it was a Plymouth, it was an old, green car. He basically dragged her body up Potato Hill Road behind the vehicle, and then buried her torso and other limbs in the area. Now, he is in prison for this still to this day. He comes up on parole every couple years. Obviously, he, gets denied it because of such a heinous crime. And there is also other stories of him that he didn't get convicted for, of him killing other younger women in the New Hartford area, Utica area, and basically burying them up in Starr Hill or in Penn Mountain Forest. Nothing has ever turned up from this. No bodies have been found up there that I know of. I could be wrong. But it's a very sad, unfortunate story. And the other explanation is that, or other ghost story I should say rather, is that if you're ever driving up that road at night, you can hear screams of his victims, and the ghosts basically of them are screaming at you, and, people have heard very blood-curdling screams, very scary things up there, and experienced very scary things, which I'll get into a little bit later. But that is one of the other kind of ghost stories, and people always say when they're going up there, like I said, Hatch's Pond is the big area. But again, like I said too, the misconception is that he actually killed them and buried this particular woman in Penn Mountain State Forest, and he actually didn't. It was on Potato Hill Road. Still pretty unsettling though if you're ever in the area, and it's very sad and unfortunate.
I didn't know. What? I'm going over here.
You got nothing to be scared of.
Something bad is gonna happen because it's me.
Oh. This is where the chair used to be on these things. That was the one that if you sat in, you died.
Oh, it's good it's gone. Because my feet hurt.
We went through here.
Wait, that's...
No, it's JPJ.
Is that
JP Morgan.
JPJ.
Turn your flashlight on.
Ryan humps for free.
Why is he so bright?
Because he's a ghost.
Yo, there's people in there, bro. Yo.
No, they're not anymore. This has been broken. Yeah, it's above ground. This one there might be, but I doubt that one.
Yo, wait,
That's
so
been
they
broken
take
so
the
many
person
times.
out of here?
Well, probably grave robbers or something.
Well, that's why they have the cameras, because people used to fuck with all this stuff.
Yeah, that's why half of everything's fucking broken.
Yeah.
These kind of creep me out. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, a little bit. You're not gonna lie. Dude,
I'm not even in the circle.
Because people are assholes. You should come here in the summertime when they have fucking fires and stuff. They drive their trucks up here and make ruts and shit. It's terrible.
Anywhere else in the world, fucking mid-May is considered summer.
Bro, this has got claw marks on it, dude. That's actually kind of creepy. It's got fucking scratch marks on it, bro. Probably just a black bear.
You go midnight. Midnight is still winter.
Here it is. Literally anywhere else on Earth, mid-May is fucking summer. It's like 80 in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, we're not fucking Pennsylvania.
Whiteface had snow on it the other day. I'm waiting for.
Oh, I thought they were giving you the finger, right?
Yeah, it kinda looks
That
like
was
that.
hilarious. Dude, that's why all the grace started being
They make glass headstones now, you know. That'd be pretty cool.
They're really cool.
That's kind of cool.
They're expensive though.
Versus the guy she tells you not to worry about.
Oh no.
Oh, it's all mossy. That's disgusting.
Yeah, no. One night, me
That
came in here.
Yeah, honestly.
He's got moss growing on the bottom.
She's not getting down there anyway. You have to worry about the end of the shaft. You gotta worry about that one. Oh my god.
So according to The most fucked up time to be here is 3 o'clock in the morning because that's devil's hour.
Devil's hour.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah. All right, so let's stay here. No. We could go and then come back.
Just don't step on them.
I have to work.
Just don't
So do I.
Why?
Because you're stepping on a tool.
I was like, I wouldn't step on that.
It's
Probably
just,
step on it.
it's just
No,
disrespectful.
Don't step on
I ain't no dick.
Do you think that if there are ghosts, if they know we're just here, paying respect,
Alright, whatever. I'll go on a second date with
my philosophy is,
I wish you the best.
my philosophy is if there are really ghosts and we're just here, you know, looking at their, like, just finding out who was buried here and visiting them.
Yeah.
They probably haven't had people come actually just genuinely come visit them
Yeah.
all fucking long.
You think we're genuinely coming and visiting?
Well, we're interested. We're not breaking anything.
Two people with alcohol in their hands.
We're not breaking anything. We're not destroying anything. We're just
not causing
genuinely
any issues.
interested.
Where'd you get that?
My house. We're interested. We're looking into who's buried here.
wait,
We're not disrespecting them.
So that was just a little snippet of the cemetery that is in Starr Hill, and if you heard a little bit about what I was saying in the video, basically the big legend there is that there was a rocking chair at one point that if you sat in that chair you would surely die. I've only heard stories about it being true. I mean, I'm sure people have gone up there when it was actually there. It's no longer there anymore. The story goes that a girl sat there with a bunch of friends, kind of how I was, just screwing around, haha, you know, it's not going to hurt me. And then the next day she got in a car accident and died, so the father believed the legend, you know, took the chair and burned it or did whatever with it. But that's no longer there, but that was a big story there, you know, like a couple years ago. Everyone was going up there to try and find the rocking chair. Now, these are all of my personal stories and things that I've seen while I was up there, which are a little unsettling. Also, I'll be throwing in some accounts that my friends have told me that I trust and believe that are true. But they're all kind of centered around me going up there with a bunch of friends and trying to see some of the stuff that we always hear about. Now, another thing you guys should know is that the area is locally known to all the kids as a big party spot. When I was in high school and throughout high school, you'd always go up there on a weekend to the second lookout, which is actually into the forest more, and there'd always be a huge bonfire going. Everybody's there, like 60, 70 people at the most sometimes. Not always that most, but a lot of times you'd go up there and you'd run into a party. So along with that, you know, there's alcohol involved, there's other things, whatever. So some of the stories stem from that. But when I was up there, most of these were not, you know, when I was partying, they were just going up there to ghost hunt. The first one, when I was at the first lookout down on the actual road, I was sitting with a couple friends of mine. We were sitting in the car. I glanced over, looked down the hill, and I saw the lights. I saw one light. It was down the road, probably looked like, you know, it was some distance away. It wasn't like right next to the car. It was down the road, decent distance. And I look over to my friend and I ask her, I'm like, did you just see that? She's like, what are you talking about? So now I got everyone in the car wondering, so we're looking, and sure enough, we see them a second time. And they are closer, it appears, this time. And it was just one light. And it was going across the road, flickering very slowly, and then it went out. Probably about maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds later. And at that point, we were freaked the hell out. We're like, let's get out of here. So we left. And when we were going down that hill, we didn't pass any cars, nothing, anything that could have been given off that light source or anything like that. The next story is actually not the video that's in this video of the cemetery, but the next day we went back up. My friend who was with us, Ryan, who you can actually hear quite a bit in the video, he's the one that was like driving us to go here this summer. I've been there so many times before. It's the first couple times, I'll admit, it is creepy to go up there if you've never been up there, and especially in the cemetery walking around at night. But he was really itching to go up there. I figured, no, I've been up there a couple times. I'll go up and I'll help them around and just, you know, stuff like that. Because it's kind of, you can get lost if you've never been up there before. So we go in the cemetery. He brought a Ouija board. He really wanted to play the Ouija board. Personally, I don't really know if those are real or not. I know everyone says that it's got to be someone moving it, or it's the ghost moving it, or the spirit. When we played it in the cemetery, which is of course the worst place they say you should not play one, they had some weird things coming through to them. Now, like I said, I'm not gonna cite that as anything because everyone who seems to play a Ouija board, something scary happens. But when we were walking from one side of the cemetery to the other, there was about 10 of us, maybe 9. So there was a group of my friends in front of me, probably 10, 15 feet in front of me, and there was a group of my friends behind me, and I was walking with this girl. Her name was Courtney, and she started laughing. She's like, haha, very funny. I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, stop tapping my shoulder. I'm like, I'm not tapping. Like, genuinely, I was not touching her. I'm like, I'm not tapping your shoulder. She goes, ha ha ha, yeah, whatever. And I thought she was just trying to freak me out, and she must have thought I was trying to freak her out. So we didn't think anything of it. And then later that day, or the next day, I asked her, I go, were you being serious about you being tapped on your shoulder? She goes, yeah, it happened to me probably 3, 4 times that night when we were there. And I just thought it was you the whole time. And I go, no, I swear to God, it was not me. I wasn't touching you, and there was none of my friends around us that could have been doing that. So that kind of freaked me out a little bit too, knowing that she was basically getting tapped on her shoulder by something or someone the whole night. I know for a fact it wasn't me, and I believe her. I don't have any reason not to, but that's a little unsettling as well. Now, a couple other things that I have witnessed up there that aren't really as creepy. They're just kind of off-settling, a little weird. Going up the trail, there's a bunch of little kind of shack things that are built on the edge of the trail going off in. There's also foundations of old buildings and stuff like that. There was at one time a settlement in that area. I believe it was like a Welsh settlement. And that's what the cemetery is from. All the stones in the cemetery are dated like prior to the 1900s, like late 1800s, mid 1800s. So it makes you wonder kind of what all of that stuff is up there. And me and my friends have gone through them looking at stuff. There's some weird stuff, old stuff like in the 90s and 80s, stuff like that you find. Like there's one of them that has just calendars in there from I think 1987 through like the early 90s. It's just kind of weird. It makes you wonder like what people are doing up there, because to my knowledge, I don't think any of the land is owned. I think that's all state land. Other stories I've heard from my friends include a girl that I know was riding in the bed of a truck up the trail, just, like ghost hunting type of thing. It's what we do when we're bored, because honestly, there's nothing else to do around here. And she says that while she was driving, they saw lights in front and behind them, which they thought were a car, so they stopped. And then the lights kind of just went away, and there really is nowhere on the trail for you to just disappear. There's only a couple little, I guess, side roads that you can take, and I don't believe they were near any of them. And she also said when they started driving, they came back, and it was just kind of freaky. Also, another story that one of my buddies has told me when he was up there was that they were getting out of the truck in the middle of the trail to go and get something they saw in the woods. I think it was like a traffic cone or something. And him and the like 4 or 5 other people that were with him told me that they saw just a little boy riding a bike through the woods, and they said something to him, and he just didn't answer, which is, probably not a ghost, but, it's kind of freaky. And there's just a lot of other weird stories up there that I've heard from people, and if you ask around the area, that people will tell you. And it's a very, very creepy place. Not somewhere I would go myself. I'd have to have a group of people with me to go up there and do stuff, but it can be fun. And I'm still, to this day, I always go up there trying to run into something. If I ever do, I'll definitely try and catch a video of it and put it on here, but until then, all I have is stories for you guys. So that finishes my video off, guys. I hope you enjoyed hearing some of these local ghost stories and stuff like that about not my hometown, but somewhere that I live pretty close to and I frequent when I'm bored and where I've had a lot of memories. If you guys are from the area, Utica, Rome area, and if you have any stories about Starr Hill that you would like to share, feel free to definitely drop them in the comments. I'm always happy to read any of them and respond to you guys, because it's something, like I said, that I hold pretty close to me since it is local, and it's pretty cool. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Rate, comment, and subscribe if you'd like to see more of these videos in the future. I'm definitely going to continue this on and look for other local areas to make videos on, and even maybe some exploring videos in the future. But thank you guys so much, and have a great day.